This would be a big evening at the Moot Point. And Omar was excited. He was an excitable sort anyway, and he was excited. He was busying himself. The first to arrive was the couple, Rachel and Jacob, in their buggy. And they parked the buggy and Freundin, the horse, in the wagon shed, which was near the barn. And uh, Rachel, or no, Jacob imagined that, he had to decide should he unhitch Freundin. And he thought no, she was comfortable. She had a good place under a roof. There was some chance of rain that night, they had heard. And he imagined that she, the horse, would like to have a view. And she did. She could see the cars coming in. She was facing the southwest, and way off in the distance there was some heat lightning. So I don't know. Maybe he was funny that way, but he just imagined that it would be better for her. So anyway, they came and they went in and busied themselves with making sure everything was ready. And the second to arrive was the car with Rachel and Violet and Edgy in it. And this was around 4 o'clock now. It was plenty early, but there wasn't really that much to do. And Rachel also busied herself with getting things ready. Now Omar spoke to Rachel very seriously, and he said, "Don't you worry. This is Saturday night. Don't you worry about Big Bubba. If he would dare to appear, the law is going to be here right away. He's been informed. He's a persona non grata. He would be trespassing." And Roscoe Nutcool, T. Nutcool, has been alerted, and if he even shows his face here or any of his friends, they'll be alerted. He's not welcome. And that might also be a chance to explain that Omar and his wife Indira, they were still working on what was going to be the legal status of the Moot Point, and they thought of the term in German. It was Biergarten, or in German Biergarten. It was a Biergarten. And that's so similar to English that they thought, well, they just call it that. But it was private. It wasn't public. And by being private, it meant that not just anybody could go there. Anyone who came was a guest, and they didn't pay. That's the way he had it set up for the time being, and maybe for as long as he could afford to. But anyway, I don't have to wonder, what is it, a bar or a restaurant? No, it was a beer garden. So anyway, he explained to her about that they were ready, and they did not expect that he would show up. Now, the next to appear was the schoolmarm, Gladys Diversey. And as I suggested, she was not by herself. She had a man with her. And they came walking over the knoll from her house and together through the pasture, and came in, and Omar greeted him. He was just quite the host. He was excited to stay, and greeted him, and was introduced to Gladys's fiancée, and she introduced him also. There were so few people there. Edgy was there too, and Gladys introduced him as Austin T. Wright, and at that, right away, Edgy said, "Oh, are you related to Austin Tappan Wright, the author?" And Austin, the new guy, said, "Well, yes. I'm a little surprised you knew that. Austin Tappan Wright was my great grandfather." And Edgy said, "Oh, he wrote. That was a great book that he wrote." And Austin agreed. "Yes, I think so too." And I'm actually working on a sequel to it. There were several sequels written, but they were terrible. So there were three or four. Nothing could match what my great great grandfather, Austin Tappan, Wright, did. So I'm going to see if I can do it justice, and I'm working on that. And they started talking about that because Edgy had actually read it twice. He liked the book that much. Now the next to arrive was Andy Snyder. Remember him? He was there for Violet. He just decided that he would go and keep an eye on her. He heard some about that there was a certain amount of danger there, but there was also, because of Big Bubba, but not to Violet, but to Elaine. But it was Violet that he was protective of, and he had been instructed by the much younger ones there at the museum that he should try to find out what happened to that scroll and whether or not they solved it. You see, there was a lot of discussion while all these young people were watching Andy figure out how to transfer that silk onto paper. And Edgy and Violet, they had brought the scroll, they had brought the papers as instructed, and they were ready to go into that. Now it wasn't long before this would be Andy, the artist, the curator at the Museum of Arts and Crafts. He realized that discussion was going on about Austin Tappan's book, and Edgy and Austin were really into it, and that got him interested too, and because he'd read the book, surprisingly, and so they got into a discussion about that book, and so that was going on. Oh, what else to tell you about? Indira was just sort of busy seeing to things to get ready. And then it wasn't before too long that clientele began to arrive. Now, Omar didn't expect there to be that many for a couple reasons. One, it was Saturday night, and there'd been this sort of shadow on Saturday night because of Big Bubba and his henchmen. And people didn't realize that threat was gone. But then there were others that hadn't been there for a long time because they'd heard that Elaine had taken care of Big Bubba, and so they were there to support her. And now, as the evening was getting going, there was no music, and Omar explained that he'd learned his lesson. He'd taken the sound system out. He said he wasn't going to have any more music unless it was live, because they didn't need music. They didn't need artificial music brought in. There was quite enough there going on anyway. So the stage was set, and it was about probably 5 o'clock or maybe a little bit later that Omar sort of wrapped the table. There weren't that many people there. It wouldn't have been necessary. Oh, there's one other thing I was going to tell you. He took time to show Edgy around when there wasn't that much clientele. He showed him around the barn and what they were doing and the decor. And I also wanted to tell you how that was laid out. This is the basement. If you approached it, there was a door right in the middle. Now this is the understory of the barn. That's where people went in. And as you went in, the center was actually ribboned off because it was a work in progress. They were going to build a huge furnace, I guess is what I'd call it. In German, it'd be called a Kachelofen. I'll tell you more about that later. But that was ribboned off. They had till winter to work on that. Now off to the left was a bar, and that's where the restrooms and the sort of kitchen was. But remember, this is a beer garden. This isn't really a restaurant. And then off to the right was that area where the pool table was. And wherever they could, they had seats uh, and tables set up. They were using lumber that they had from tearing down the old silo. There were two wooden silos there, and when they tore them down because they weren't safe anymore, Omar had saved that wood carefully and had it stacked and stickered out there by the wagon shed. So anyway, he'd been shown around. Oh, and I wanted to tell you that he was working with an interior decorating uh, company or agency called Frost and Sons that was not from Richland but from a nearby smaller town on his design. I guess that's enough, and now it's time to tackle the scroll.